What is your profession?
Hey, my name is Jordan, I'm from Jordan and you are watching The Jordan Show. Today we are reacting to the 7th episode of the series Misconceptions with the title Never Left Africa Before the Slave Trade. These kind of videos most of the time leave me feeling really not that happy because it's full of really dark racist ideas. But you know, we have to learn about these things to prevent these things from happening again and again and again. Thank you very much, Matthew Man, for sponsoring this video and many other videos. Like to be honest, like basically without you I wouldn't be able to actually post videos, you know. Like all the money I pay for the internet is coming from you, man. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, let's start the video. Roll it!
That's my best friend. That's my best friend.
Hello everyone, it's Jabbar here. I usually try to keep my misconceptions
Hey Jabbar, what's happening?
videos relatively short and sweet, but in this episode I have a lot to cover, including more information about the identity of the Moors, as it kinda ties into this misconception. So basically you should consider this video a part 1.5 of this video. Among the many misconceptions about sub-Saharan Africa is the notion that they never left the continent, stuck in a perpetual state of isolation, doomed to their native lands, while lacking the will or the capability to travel elsewhere until they were enslaved by foreign invaders from Eurasia. Despite the fact that this is completely untrue, what is true is that it was indeed rare for sub-Saharan African states to extend outside of the continent. And this wasn't due to some innate lack of ingenuity or capability. It was a simple fact that a desert larger than the United States presented a barrier between Eurasia and sub-Saharan Africa. This barrier was a two-way barrier that prevented both groups from entering one another's lands for millennia. Despite this, there are numerous instances of sub-Saharan African peoples interacting, trading, and even going to war in places outside of Africa since ancient times.
I don't know, I don't know if my information is that accurate, but there's a lot of Africans in the you know, Arabic history, the Arab history in general, and also the Islamic history in general. Like there's a lot of Africans, so we're talking about, you know, most Arabs are in Asia back then, you know, like, you know, you're talking about the desert of Saudi Arabia, maybe like the Middle East and stuff like that. So I don't know if that actually helps or adds any points to this conversation, but yeah, like I think there was always some Africans in our history here, around here.
And no, I'm not referring to the other black people indigenous to places like Australia or Melanesia whom were genetically distant from sub-Saharan Africans, and in most cases phenotypically different as well, aside from skin color. And also, no, I'm not using the whole humans began in Africa, thus everyone's African logic. I'm not talking about the initial wave of early Homo sapiens that left the African continent tens of thousands of years ago. The Empire of Aksum is a prime example. It was a powerful sub-Saharan African empire that had trade networks extending across the Indian Ocean.
Oh, that's how, you know, when you look at when you look at the map, you know, it's just like this small part of you know, the Red Sea. They just can't, you know, cross it and go to the, you know, the Arabic part of Asia. Yeah, by the way, just to be clear, guys, Yemen is where Arabs started. You know, like almost, let's say like 90% plus of the Arab people were they were like the civilization or the whole race started from Yemen.
It was so powerful and influential in the region that in the 3rd century CE, it was described by Persian prophet Mani as one of the 4 great empires of the world, along with China, Persia, and Rome. During its zenith, the Aksumite Empire itself stretched as far as modern-day Yemen, well outside of the African continent. This expansion was possible due to Aksum's proximity to the coast, allowing them to completely bypass the Sahara Desert by sea. Evidence of trade with lands as far away as India and Sri Lanka have been unearthed in the form of Ethiopian coins dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries, with one such coin being discovered in Sri Lanka in 1998 and being described by archaeologist Dr. Reinhold Wahlberg as an almost totally corroded copper or bronze coin being unearthed in a layer that dates back between 450 CE and the 7th century CE. It is generally accepted that Ethiopians of the era served as intermediary merchants between India and the Byzantine Empire. Moving further south, the Swahili people had a strong tradition of trade outside of Africa that dates back to at least the 13th and 14th century CE, with other sources suggesting dates as early as the year 500 CE. Swahili
You know, I like until now I keep really like confusing CE with PCE and with all these like. Why didn't they just like use one timeline? That's it, you know, like like I think PCE is before Christ's birth. Is it that? I don't know. So CE is like after Christ was born, right? Right? Okay, seriously, like this is too. I think I should actually. I don't know. You know what? I will keep it for you guys to correct me. That's easier for me because I don't want to like cut this like recording and go research and come back. It's too much work. So you guys just correct me, okay? On that.
Merchants have been documented shipping African animals to lands as far away as China in the 15th century. One example of this involved the transport of a giraffe from the Swahili state of Malindi to the court of the Ming dynasty as a gift of.
By the way, the giraffes are my favorite, and I think they are the funniest animals ever. And at the same time, there's a lot of stories about giraffes going from Africa to so many other countries. I think we covered this one of these stories in this show, but if we didn't, maybe I will do something like that because there's a lot of amazing stories about giraffes traveling around the world that make you think, wow, this is really interesting.
Friendship to China. These shipments were conducted with large indigenous ships called mtepe, a word that directly translates to the word ship in the Swahili language. Relics of this trade can be found in the form of African pottery being excavated in southern India, found in quantities so high that they were likely produced by entire communities of African settlers. In fact, there is still a relic community of East Africans living in Pakistan and India to present day, whom descend from these early East African settlers known as the Sidi people. These East African settlers even formed their own kingdom on the Indian subcontinent in the 15th century known as the Janjira state, with a ruling elite of Ethiopian Habesha descent. Moving over to West Africa, we'll see a host of people who frequently traverse the Sahara for political, religious, and militaristic reasons. Perhaps the earliest documented instance of this is in the case of the Almoravids, whom were allied to the West African kingdom of Takrur. 4,000 Takruri soldiers invaded Spain alongside the Almoravids in the year 1076, establishing dominion over the Iberian Peninsula. These 4,000 black soldiers were but one of many instances of sub-Saharan African soldiers being involved in military campaigns of the Moroccan states, or in some cases, invading Morocco themselves, such as the case with the many wars fought between the Songhai Empire and the Saadi dynasty. In 1324, Mansa Musa I of the Mali Empire famously traversed the Sahara, traveling nearly 4,000 miles on an 8-month journey. Accompanying him was an entourage of over 60,000 people with 100 camels carrying 300 pounds of gold each and 500 slaves.
Wow. How much gold is that? How much gold is that? How much gold is that? Like, was it the camel who were carrying the gold, the camels, or like the people? Because if it's the people, like that gold can actually solve everybody's problem this day and time. Yeah.
Slaves carrying 4 pounds each. That's a total of 16 tons of gold.
16 tons of gold. Oh my god. Oh my god. 16 tons of gold. That's 6,000. Is it 16? Like, so it's 16,000 kilos of gold. How much is that? That's a lot of money.
During his pilgrimage, he visited Egypt and the Arabian Peninsula, where he lavishly spent this absurd amount of gold, causing an inflation in the economy of the entire Mediterranean region that lasted 20 years.
He was making money fly. he was making like money rain, like what they call it. I don't know how they say that.
Musa was neither.
Oh. So he just spent money all over the Middle East, that everybody was really happy and has money for like 20 years. That's really cool.
The first nor the last West African to make such a journey, though his was certainly the most extravagant and lasting, as he is the only man in recorded history to have ever single-handedly affected the economy of the entire Mediterranean region. His epic journey was so world-renowned that it was even known in Europe, with an image of Musa being featured on a map of West Africa in the 1375 Catalan Atlas, despite the fact that no Europeans had ever been there before. The Mali Empire, its neighbors, their successors, as well as their predecessors also partook in the trans-Saharan trade for centuries, but it was simply infeasible to have a contiguous empire across the Sahara in the past. There are a few exceptions, however, such as the New Kingdom of Egypt and the 25th Dynasty Kushite Empire, but even these were only possible due to their proximity to the Nile Valley, which runs south to north from sub-Saharan Africa all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea. The Kingdom of Morocco extended to sub-Saharan Africa on 2 occasions, once under the aforementioned Almoravid dynasty in the year 1076 CE, and again under the Saadi dynasty in 1591, but both times the Sahara proved too much of a barrier to feasibly control the people south of it for any length of time, with the Almoravids and Saudis only controlling contiguous empires reaching sub-Saharan African lands for 11 years and 12 years respectively. The same pattern can be observed with Eurasian peoples into Africa. Though countless Eurasian empires expanded into Africa throughout history, virtually none of them ever extended across the Sahara Desert until the Ottoman Empire established tributary status over Egypt in the 19th century. Even still, this was only possible due to, again, Egypt's position along the Nile Valley, allowing for a bypass of the Sahara by land. Europeans never accomplished a contiguous trans-Saharan empire at any point throughout history, being limited to the Mediterranean coast and knowing virtually nothing about the land south of the Sahara until the middle of the 15th century. The French did, however, have a partially contiguous empire reaching sub-Saharan Africa by way of the Mediterranean Sea in the early 20th century, but it wasn't connected by land. Colonization of Europeans of sub-Saharan Africa at all only began in the 15th century, with the advent of improved sailing technology, and even still, these colonies were mostly limited to small coastal trade ports until modern military and maritime technology allowed for full-scale colonization of Africa in the 19th and 20th centuries. Despite all of this, Europeans still struggled to control their African colonies, with most African nations managing to gain independence within just a few decades of conquest. In conclusion, the Sahara Desert simply provided no incentive for empires to conquer or control.
Yeah, that's a very hard land to conquer, I guess, when there's no water and you are too wide to actually survive such weather. I don't know what they were thinking though, seriously.
Instead, acting as a barrier of inhospitable land incapable of agriculture or permanent civilization, and spanning a region larger than the United States. Even with modern technology and transportation, it is still a very difficult task. This is a stark contrast to the vast expanses of land in Eurasia that provide thousands upon thousands of miles of continuous, habitable, and easy to traverse territory to conquer and control, with almost none of these empires ever expanding into sub-Saharan Africa. Despite this, many sub-Saharan Africans throughout history still managed to cross into far-off lands and states across the Sahara and across the sea, in spite of all of these challenges, and not just as slaves, but as merchants, pilgrims, ambassadors, soldiers, and explorers. Thanks for watching, guys, and always remember, we don't come from nothing.
That was really interesting. I'm gonna do some thinking and I will tell you what I think about this after. Alright, first of all, that was a really interesting video. I learned a lot, now I know that, sub-Saharan Africans actually traveled out of Africa before, and they almost like conquered Spain or the Libertarian Peninsula. I think one time or more. And I just googled what's PCE and what's CE and what is PC. I don't know. So PCE before Common Era, and PC is before Christ. CE is Common Era. AD is Anno Domini. I don't know what's that. That's really interesting. I love history and stuff like that, but I don't know how these numbers came to exist. Why don't they just have one lifetime, one timeline, which is like for example, we have recorded history of humans like almost 300,000 years ago. The oldest fossil we have is like 300,000 years ago. Why don't we just start from there and that's it. You don't have to just chop all these things and make it very difficult for us to understand. Anyhow, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe and smash that like button. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. See ya.
That's my best friend.